The investigation continues over a legally blind man who was kicked off a US Airways flight because of his service dog. Wednesday night, after an hour and a half on the tarmac, Albert Rizzi's guide dog, Doxy, became agitated. The dog inched out from underneath the seat, and that's when a flight attendant told Rizzi the plane would not take off until the dog went back underneath the seat. She later returned and kicked the man and his dog off the flight. When the other 35 passengers saw what happened, they also got off the plane. All of the passengers ended up taking a bus back to Long Island from Philadelphia. US Airways officials say the crew's safety was a factor and they have training for guide dog procedures, but guide dogs also have training not to be disruptive. Joining us live in the newsroom now is Fox 26 legal analyst Chris Tritico, Fox 26 news analyst Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. Really, you guys? This sounds really bizarre. I can't believe the airline would go to this extreme.
Well, you know, when I first heard this story, I was extremely offended that US Airways would treat a blind passenger in this fashion. And as I've thought it through over the weekend, there's some issues that I think everyone needs to look at on both sides of this issue. And first is that there are FAA regulations requiring how the flight attendants handle situations, especially things in the aisle, and nothing is allowed to be in the aisle. Now, does that mean that the flight attendant handled this correctly? Probably not, but there are federal regulations that if the flight attendant allows those regulations to be violated, can lose their job over that, Jackie Bally.
That's
so
correct.
What is the answer here?
No, you've really articulated well. I mean, there are guidelines that she has to adhere to. However, I think what she's being faulted for is definitely a lack of common sense.
Right.
Because there were alternate seats or alternate options she could have given him, and she refused to do that. It was noted that there were seats available where the dog could have been placed properly and following the FAA guidelines, and she just did not give that option.
And that's really, I think, where this comes down to is a training part on the part of the flight attendants. And you know, the thing is, the dog is supposed to be stowed under the seat in front of you. I don't know how you put a dog under the seat in front of you, but the fact that she could have moved him to another seat would have solved this. It wasn't a full flight.
You know, you can train people for all sorts of things, but you can't train them to be a good human being. And if this situation was happening, the fact that all the other passengers got off the plane, all the other passengers sided with this gentleman that was blind, tells you that, you know, there were cues there that a lot could have been done to manage the situation, and it wasn't. Somebody just drew a line in the sand and basically said, "I'm not doing this." And in my previous life, I represent the Perkins School of the Blind in New York, and had a great opportunity to work with a lot of people that are blind, that travel, they do these amazing things, and to hear this, it just makes you angry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is an upsetting situation to hear that a blind person would be thrown off of a plane because their dog wiggled, as the news stories I saw explained it. But when the dog moves into the aisle, they have to do something, don't they?
Yeah, they do. But again, I think US Airways just handled it completely wrong.
And are still handling it wrong, quite frankly.
The gentleman said they haven't even contacted him yet.
Right.
So yes, I mean, again, they need to make sure that he is placed properly. They didn't handle that correctly, throw him off the seat. I mean, one of my students, he is blind, he has his dog. They depend on those dogs.
Right.
And this gentleman said, you know what? He's not done. He said he hasn't heard from the airlines. He plans to sue. He said they're messing with the wrong person. The dog's name is Doxology, meaning praise God. So I think they mess with the wrong people.
And that's really what causes these things to get out of hand, is when they get in a PR situation where they're not handling it right. I want to go to Domily. She's monitoring our social media, and I'm sure we've got a few comments on this.
Oh my goodness, yeah. On my Facebook page, Kendrick Trahan says, "I was really impressed when I heard the passengers sticking up for this man and his dog. They did the right thing." Also, Marcia Kushner says, "How sad the airline mistreated a disabled passenger. Kudos to the wonderful passengers who stood up with him." And Lisa Pullen Hamilton says, "Power to the people. The airline lost money that day, all because the dog wiggled. What the heck?" And I absolutely agree, you guys. The airline still hasn't contacted this passenger, and I think the flight attendant's common sense went right out the window that day.
It sure did, and that's really what causes these situations to be as bad as they are, because if you just use a little common sense and you're nice to everyone and you're professional in your dealings with people, you don't have these situations. Because the simple way, Mustafa Tamiz, would have been, sir, we've got to do something with your dog so he's not in the aisle. Let me find you a new seat. Yeah. We're not talking about this today.
No, I think US Air should call me. We do a lot of crisis communications. I can give my number over the air.
Good Lord.
All the things you're doing are wrong. We can tell you exactly what to do and stop picking on blind people. This is just not right.
Work it out for
the most pathetic pandering for job I have ever seen. All right, we're going to leave it right there before Mustafa's does anything else. We'll be back in the next hour with two good stories.
I'm looking forward to it, Chris. Can't wait to see it.
All right.
Caitlin?